Well, the school back in session, students teens, and while many are excited, some will also face some challenges.
According to the Mitchell Institute, 1 in 5 Maine adults attended college but never graduated, leaving them with debt. This morning we have Casey Neer from the Mitchell Institute to tell us how they're helping students cross the finish line. Good morning, Casey. Thanks for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
First, can we talk about your role at the Mitchell Institute?
Yeah, so I am the scholarship director at the Mitchell Institute, which we are a scholarship provider for the state of Maine. And that means I get to help everyone from the applicants who are aiming to get the scholarship, to the scholars who are the students who are in college, to the alums. And now we have over 3,000 alums who are almost 50 because this started in a large group.
Tell us about, this is so difficult. The student debt out there is astronomical.
Yeah. I think, the population that we really focus on particularly and we worry about is the students for whom they are accumulating debt but not accumulating a degree, meaning that they're not getting that earning potential because they didn't graduate on time or ever. And so they now have this debt, but they don't have a degree, which is the hardest problem to have to figure out how to solve.
What are some of the reasons that you've heard of why a student may not finish their degree?
A lot of issues come up in that first semester. You can imagine, just like in a first job, if you don't have early feedback of how you're doing and feeling confident in your job, same thing goes for students. They're more likely to drop out if there's an accumulation of a lot of little things that can happen. It can be an ailing parent and they need to go back home. These are students who are living independently sometimes for the first time. It can be unexpected costs. Books are crazy expensive. We have students who don't realize that textbooks can be hundreds of dollars and they've budgeted and nickeled and dimed their way, but didn't realize that seeing a lot of little things that accumulate. And the thing that I always focus on is that, if you take a high school class in Maine, 56% of that graduating seniors will go on to college. Only 36% of those after that first year will persist to the second year. So we lose 20% of those kids just in that first year.
Tell us about the partnerships between scholarship providers and local employers that are really making a difference out there.
Yeah, I think a lot of Maine students are working hard both in the classroom and out, and so I really love to see when some of those employers are saying, we want you to stay in college, we want to make this easier for you. So Hannaford has a tuition assistant program for those students for whom they're working part-time or higher, where they're able to stay in school and keep their job, which is what a lot of at least our Mitchell scholars are absolutely employed during college, and that can make a really big difference to motivate them to the finish line.
How about early intervention programs? How do those work and why is that so important?
Yes, it is so important. It sounds very simple, but for the parents, grandparents, guardians out there, encourage students to check their email because there are people at these college campuses there to help, and they are trying to reach out to students, and it's really on students to then set up that appointment. So most campuses now will have a required academic advisor or major advisor who reaches out to you. There are student services ready and willing to help in that first semester, but unlike in high school where they're going to come find a bit of motivation and self-awareness to say, I need help and I need to ask for help.
Let's talk about how important the community-based support networks helping students like off campus too.
Yeah. Well, that's where a lot of scholar providers can come in. So scholarship providers, some folks don't realize, yes, we provide financial support to a student in terms of a check, but we also provide wraparound support to them. So you have people like me who are on call to help students if they go, I didn't get into the class I want, or I'm having a crisis of faith and I don't think I want to be an engineer anymore. Those are all things that we can help with and helping them pivot, because oftentimes it's those crisis moments that are make or break of a student staying in college or dropping out completely. And so people like us, community-based organizations, are there to help, kind of team up with colleges to make sure students get to that finish line.
How about people watching right now? How can they support college students in their lives?
Gosh, one of the biggest things is I think we talk a lot about getting to college and we don't often talk about getting through college. We hear a lot about the costs and the debt and all of that, but we don't necessarily talk about all of the support systems finish line. And so I think one of the biggest ones is pointing them to the resources that exist on their own communities. I think another one is pointing them to resources that exist outside, like scholarship providers. I think some students don't realize, well, I actually got a really good, scholarship from my college. I don't need additional support. You don't realize how much you might need it until you're in college. And so applying for more scholarships in high school can really help you have additional, support systems.
Let's talk about the legacy of George Mitchell and why this program started.
Yeah, Senator George Mitchell started this in 1995. He himself was a first-generation college student. His father was a janitor at Colby. His ability to go to college certainly changed the course of his life to becoming, one of the most prominent senators in our history. And he really wanted to give back to the state of Maine. He had made it a mission to give the commencement address at every Maine public high school during his tenure in the Senate, and he did, which is pretty remarkable since senators can be busy folks. And in that time, he saw how different it was in terms of the access to resources and aspirations across the state, from the county down to York. And so he wanted to level the playing field. And so he started this scholarship, and now we give $10,000 to a graduate, at least one graduate from every Maine public high school every year. And now we're reached, 4,000 total alumni and scholars in the state of Maine.
And how did you do that?
Right.
Really?
A lot of work,
Yeah.
a lot of work, a lot of fundraising. But, he clearly tapped into something that people believed in. He thought that with hard work and, if students wanted it, if they wanted to go to college, money should not be the thing to stop them. And so he really tapped into something that I think a lot of folks believe in.
We shared that, statistic at the top of the segment. Yeah. Where do you see things going from here? And do you, each year or every 5 years kind of have to reassess, what are the trends we're seeing, the challenges we're seeing?
Yeah, I think, one of the biggest things that gets a lot of attention these days, understandably, is the cost of college, right? Cost of college is just astronomical. But I think some folks don't realize that, colleges are pricing things so that they're trying to give out scholarships and outside scholarships to kind of match that increase. And so the net cost is staying about the same. But what is changing is that all of these outside costs that students are incurring. So things like books, but also health and groceries and rent. And so we talk about, basic needs insecurity is something we hear a lot about in the college population. 60% nationally of college students are struggling with basic needs insecurity, which is paying for groceries and paying for rent. Cost of living is just higher. And so I think sometimes folks don't realize that college students are people just like us, struggling to make ends meet, but also trying to go to school. So we're really looking on what are the other things outside of just books and tuition that our students are really needing help with.
Well, what's the website? We probably have parents and maybe students watching, and they could go to get more information.
MitchellInstitute.org.
That's
so you
easy.
can just Google us and find out ways to support.
Thank you very much for joining us. We appreciate it.
Thanks for having me.
All right, stay with us. We'll be back with more ARC Maine.